This is YouTube Joseph W. and the Discussioncast interview with paleontologist Dr. Phil Currie. So, once again, Dr. Currie, it's good to have you here.
Well, good to be back.
Anyway, did you say the name of the last time? The lady on the Dino 101 course was Betsy Cook. Is that her name?
Cook.
What is
R-U-K.
What is she doing now?
She moved to California.
Do you hear from her?
Doing something other than paleontology, so I'm not really sure what.
You don't hear? Do you hear from her?
No, not at all, I'm afraid.
Okay, let me get to the questions. Starting with, do you think she mentioned in the course that the easiest way for organisms to fossilize is to die and get buried underwater in sand? So, does that mean could the remains of people or animals on shipwrecks like the Titanic get fossilized, or are they too deep underwater for that to happen? Does it have to be up to a certain...
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the situation is. My suspicion is that it's probably A, too cold, and B, it's too far away from shore, so there isn't that much sediment that's going out.
And the pressure is like over 4 times this standing on the surface of Venus, the planet Venus.
Yeah. So they may or may not get fossilized.
But what about remains of humans or animals in shipwrecks that sink in shallow seas, like the Titanic sister ship, the Britannia or Lusitania? Do they have a better chance if they're in shallow seas?
Yeah, in the shallow seas, of course, you have a much better chance because you're closer to shore, and because you're closer to shore, there's more sediment coming in from the shore.
Have you heard of those ships?
Being buried in sand and mud helps a lot.
Have you heard of either of those ships?
Yeah, Lusitania certainly.
Yeah, anyway, that's the top. This isn't really about history or maritime or oceanography, so let's move on to the main questions. Did various ornithopod dinosaurs throughout the Jurassic and Cretaceous, Jurassic and early Cretaceous, did they occupy niches that large herbivores would say, like deer, elk, moose, goats, mountain goat, sheep, etc.?
Yeah, it's not just the ornithopods. I would say that also ceratopsids.
I mean, before that, in the early and mid,
Cretaceous.
Yeah, in Jurassic, before the ceratopsids, before they really took up.
Basically, I think that throughout time, it's the animals change all the time. Of course, over time they evolve and move on and move into new areas and so on. But I mean, fundamentally, it's the same as today. That you have certain herbivores that live in certain environments and they're adapted to that.
I mean, what?
They're adapted to other ones.
Yes, the ornithopods filled a lot of large animal niches in Jurassic and Cretaceous.
Definitely.
What animal brings me to the question? Did iguanodonts and their relatives occupy before the rise of the hadrosaurs in the northern continents and still in the southern continents? Did iguanodonts and their relatives occupy the niches of horses, cattle, and bison?
Fundamentally, iguanodonts and hadrosaurs subsequently ultimately got replaced by mammalian forms. So whether you're talking about the horses, elephants, cattle, whatever, they're essentially occupying niches that were occupied by those groups of plant-eating dinosaurs.
They occupied wouldn't elephants be more like sauropods or large hadrosaurs?
Yes and no. The elephants, of course, do what sauropods did, and that is they strip the leaves off tall trees and things like that.
Did sauropods were they ecosystem engineers like elephants and other proboscideans? You know what proboscideans are?
Yeah, proboscideans?
Yeah, like mammoths, mastodons, got feared. sauropods, did they knock trees down, create pathways in forests like elephants do today?
Yeah, but probably that didn't happen a lot because, whereas an elephant could reach up into the tree with its trunk, basically sauropods have these long necks that allows them to get up into the trees and strip leaves off the trees as well. They're big enough, certainly, that they probably did trample smaller trees and could even knock big ones down if they had to. But generally speaking, that's a lot of effort for just a little bit of food. That's all you would get is a little bit of difference. Beavers are a good example too, because beavers will cut down a whole tree so that they can get the branches on the top of the tree.
Beavers, it's a totally different. They create their own environments, basically.
Yeah.
There were no dinosaurs. There were probably some early mammals like Fruitifossa. Was Fruitifossa like a beaver?
Yeah, no, I'm sure there were no dinosaurs like beavers, but you never know.
They were.
We still have a lot to discover.
Have you heard of Fruitifossa?
No.
It was an early mammal. Lived during Jurassic. Is a mammalia form. You only focus on do you know anything about other prehistoric animals?
So.
I mean, like pterosaurs.
Generally speaking, I stick to the Jurassic Cretaceous. So even when I work on mammals or fish or anything else, it's because they're from the same beds as the dinosaurs.
I thought you said last time you only focused on theropods.
Well, mostly theropods, but not only.
Okay, and then also did the so I gotta say were there hadrosaurs that some of them occupied the niche of not just of horse of not just horses but elk, more like elk, maybe elk, but definitely moose, some elephant, hippo, and giraffes.
Yeah, fundamentally you have to look at their teeth, and ideally what you'd have to look at is their stomach contents. We don't have stomach contents on that many dinosaurs, really.
Definitely not hadrosaurs?
Hadrosaurs, I think there's a few for sure. We have coniferous needles, for example, in one. And,
which species? Which genus?
Chopped up flowering plants in another one.
What genuses and species?
Well, the one was Edmontosaurus, and the other one was Clithosaurus.
Was it modest? You mean Coryphosaurus? Did that one live like a hippo?
No, I think more. It could have gone into water, but I think for the most part they were living on land.
Was it more like a moose? Coryphosaurus?
Yeah, more like a moose or a deer.
What? Yeah. And also, the small ceratopsians were more like deer. What dinosaur lived like an elk?
Well, elk, of course, are a type of deer, so they're not that different. So when you think about how many different types of iguanodonts there are, or how many types of hadrosaurs there are, and some would be more like elk, and some would be more like white-tailed deer, or other types of deer as well. The same family, but just eating slightly different things.
Same with the hadrosaurs?
Yeah.
The only reason why... wasn't there grass around towards the end of the age of dinosaurs?
No, I think there's some people who would argue that there was, but I think most people agree that grasses didn't appear until well into the Cenozoic.
Long after the non-avian dinosaurs were extinct?
Yeah.
And then also, what dinosaur occupied the niche of hippos? Was there a hippo? Was there one?
Well, some people think ceratopsians did that, because there's a lot of evidence that suggests that some ceratopsians, that they spend most of their time in very wet areas, very wet, swampy areas. Maybe like hippos.
They didn't dish it to occupy it. Did some of them live like rhinos, and some told me less like bison or cattle?
Yeah, it could be because you have the two distinct subfamilies, the Chasmosaurines and the Centrosaurines.
Which one included Triceratops?
Triceratops is a Chasmosaurine. And, some of them seem to show affinity for water.
Wait, hold on, I can't hear you. There's a school bus passing by. Alright, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. Though some of the ceratopsians seem to show an affinity for water, that is, they're always found in very muddy, swampy areas.
I thought you so.
But other ones, they seem to be more isolated. And in drier areas.
So so some ceratopsians lived like bison, some lived like rhinos, and some lived like hippopotamus.
Yeah, probably. They were certainly a very good.
And do you believe the asteroid impact alone wiped out the dinosaurs, or was the volcanism in India factors played a role?
I think that the asteroid may have had a lot to do with it, but I don't think it's the only thing. I think there's other things going on too.
Do you think was there others besides the Deccan traps in India?
Well, it could be even more subtle things like climate change.
What if there was a do you think there could have been an outbreak of a global pandemic?
I think it's unlikely that a pandemic would do it by itself.
What about if there was an alien invasion? There's no evidence of either of those.
No.
Would alien invasion what type of evidence would it leave in the geologic fossil records?
Well, nobody's really figured that out yet, so.
And then also, what a pandemic? It wouldn't leave any it would only leave genetic and maybe physical shapes on the bones, like Big Al, the Allosaurus.
Yeah.
It would leave stuff like I'm just using him as the infection on his foot. Have you seen the Ballad of Big? Have you seen that documentary, The Ballad of Big Al?
Yeah, a long time ago though.
Yeah, it's played out like a tragedy, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway, what species of Allosaurus was he? I know there were several. There were at least two, possibly more.
Species of which?
Which species of Allosaurus was Big Al?
I think it was just Fragilis.
Was that the most common one in North America? Hold on, time out. Love you, Mom. Bye. Bye. Sorry, that's my mom and the dog barking. Well, you said Fragilis was the most common one in North America?
Correct.
And then also, that brings us to therapy. Oh, hold on, before we get there, what dinosaur lived like a tapir? Was there any?
I don't know enough of tapirs to know exactly how they live. I used to pick a dinosaur that would have been of a similar lifestyle, so probably better if I don't say.
Same with capybaras?
Yeah, and same with capybaras. I mean, they're animals that live part of the time in the water, for sure.
I think with these group of ornithopods, I forget what their specific name is, but their name means flood runner. Have you heard? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, which one is it?
I forget the scientific name, but their main name in English means flood runner. They were small ornithopods. Have you heard it?
Oh.
Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
I'm afraid I don't.
Anyway, which dinosaur lived like a camel?
And, I imagine actually there were quite a few dinosaurs that lived in desert areas, but they weren't as big as camels. So Protoceratops, camel, and we always find it in dry environments, this kind of environments that camels live in today.
There were ceratopsians and hadrosaurs and iguanodons that lived like camels.
Mostly the ceratopsians.
But was it
Protoceratops?
Wasn't it more like a camel, or antelope or bighorn sheep or what? Or the pachycephalosaurs were more like bighorn sheep, right?
Pachycephalosaurs were certainly from wetter environments, not dry environments at all.
Um, um, also would they lived more like bighorn sheep or sheep and goats and mountain goats, mountain sheep in general. Anyway, what dinosaur lived like a pig?
And
I always
good
thought
question.
of ornithomimids.
You know, the dinosaurs have such different teeth than pigs.
What about ornithomimids? They're omnivores, like.
Uh-huh. But again, you know, we can come out in general and say that some of them may have lived in similar ways, but being 100% sure, it's difficult too.
I mean, what were the alvarezsaurs? It said in the theropod dinosaurs in origins of birds, of course, that they were insect eaters. They were more like an anteater. They were like an anteater. But I saw on, the mini series by Discovery Channel, Planet Dinosaur, Dinosaur Planet. I mean, with Scott Sampson. They showed them eating sauropod. Which were the alvarezsaurs? What were they like, anteaters, or were they like large, medium to large carnivores?
No, it's believed by a lot of people that they might have been anteaters because their arms were so specialized. It looks like the large claw that they have on each hand is good for maybe ripping open termite mounds or anthills.
So they were. What?
But it's just not definite, of course.
So does that mean that
you get a time machine and go back and watch them? You don't know for sure.
If you had a time machine, would you discover not just hundreds of new dinosaur species, but other prehistoric animals that haven't fossilized?
Yeah, it'd be a good way to do it. You'd see a lot more than you would as fossils.
And you would see what they would look like. They wouldn't have. Do you know? You never heard of shrink wrapping before? I told you. I mean, where they basically draw the shape, they draw the animal based on the shape of the skeleton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm excited for Walk with Dinosaurs, the new Walk with Dinosaurs that's coming in. Have you heard about it?
No, not yet.
Anyway, also, what was I gonna say? Another thing. Were raptor dinosaurs more like big cats or canines, or were some of each?
I'd say there's some of each, more like cats rather than canines. Most of them.
I mean, dromaeosaurs.
They're pretty diverse too. So.
Dromaeosaurs. I mean, like Dromaeosaurus, Velociraptor, Deinonychus. Some of them were like big cats. Some were like canine.
Yeah, certainly their claws look like cats.
So dependent on the genus and species?
Yeah, I think dependent on the genus and species, they were quite variable. And certainly the bigger ones, like Utahraptor and so on, probably look more like canines.
Was there any... you said... anyway, were there any... dinosaurs that occupied the niche of small cats and foxes, or was that what the early mammals were there?
Well, early mammals, I think, had probably occupied a lot of those positions, particularly in the evenings after dark.
Were there any diurnal Mesozoic mammals?
Well, not that we know of, but that's just because we don't know enough. And so we know that probably some of the bigger ones in some of the rougher environments, drier environments, may have been more like diurnal.
Do you know about Repenomamus? That one was like a badger.
Yeah, Repenomamus is one I was thinking of, actually.
You know, they found one even bigger than Repenomamus called Patagomio. Have you heard? It was a basophiri. Did you hear about?
No, I hadn't heard of that one.
You thought Repenomamus was the largest mammal during the age of dinosaurs?
Well, I always figured there'd be bigger ones found. So.
It wasn't the largest no one until Patagomio was discovered. Anyway, back to... So am I teaching you some things?
Oh, yes.
So,
there's a lot I don't know, and I admit that.
so what animal in the southern hemisphere during the Cretaceous occupied the niches that ceratopsians occupied? Was there any?
Well, ceratopsians are pretty special.
They did. Was there any ceratopsians in the southern hemisphere?
No, not found yet.
Was there an animal that occupied the same or similar niches and dinosaurs?
No, I mean, not that we know of, but sauropods and arthropods, of course, they could move in big herds the same way as ceratopsians. So, to an extent, they might have.
I think more like. You want to also don't forget the nodosaurs. Were there nodosaurs in the southern hemisphere in the Cretaceous?
Yeah, nodosaurs there were.
Nodosaurs, I mean the armored dinosaurs.
Yeah, of course.
Weren't they sister
so they definitely were down there, but there's not that many specimens that have been found.
They were a sister family to ankylosaurs, right?
Yeah.
Were ankylosaurs invincible to an animal like T-Rex under normal circumstances?
I kind of doubt that anything was invincible to T-Rex.
Ankylosaurs would have been formidable.
Think about it that even today, lions can take down an elephant.
But ankylosaurs were heavily armored. They were more like there was a mammalian equivalent, but it's not alive anymore, called the glyptodons. Have you heard those giant prehistoric armadillo relatives?
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
You heard of those?
Oh yeah, I've seen many fossils of them.
Were both ankylosaurs and glyptodons invincible to except for the glyptodons, humans, of course. I mean, were they invincible to predators? I mean, the ankylosaurs. I mean,
but I think they're pretty good. When you look at an ankylosaur skeleton,
it would have been a formidable prey.
Totally, it'd be very hard to turn one of those things over.
Even for a T-Rex.
Yeah.
They would have been formidable to even.
So if it was a baby ankylosaur, well, yes, maybe a Tyrannosaurus Rex could kill that, but
an
big
adult.
Ones, I doubt it.
What about a juvenile or adolescent?
Well, just depends on the relative sizes of each of them. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was a very powerful, very heavy animal.
Did the armored dinosaurs like ankylosaurs, nodosaurs, stegosaurs care for their young?
Well, we wouldn't have thought so from the North American record, but in Asia you have several sites in Mongolia and China where we have massive numbers of juvenile ankylosaurs.
Were sauropods the only dinosaurs that didn't care for or did sauropods care for their young?
Well, even sauropods, there's evidence for it in the footprint sites. There's a footprint site in Texas which apparently shows juveniles in the center of the herd, and with the adults around the outside. So even sauropods may have protected them.
I also on the episode Dinosaur Planet Alpha's Egg, they showed her in. Have you seen that? Have you seen that show at all?
Your sound has frozen up.
Have you seen? Oh, never. Have you seen Dinosaur Planet?
Yes.
All of every episode?
No, I didn't see them all. I missed 2 of them, I think.
The second two.
No, I can't even remember which ones I did see, which ones I didn't see. But I was impressed.
Were they based on real fossils? Oh yeah. They showed at the end. Oh, did you see the one with White-tipped the Velociraptor?
No, I don't think I did.
I think some of the characters were based on real fossil individuals. Yeah. Anyway, what animal was there an animal during the ceratopsians during the Jurassic that occupied an animal? I know they were, but they were very tiny, rabbit-sized in the Jurassic. Was there an animal that occupied their niche during the Jurassic?
Probably Hypsilophodons.
They they lived like
They're better known from the Cretaceous, but they were around in the Jurassic too, and they were smaller animals, and
what
may
continent?
well have burrowed in the ground too.
Weren't they from Europe or Australia?
No, all over the world.
They're.
Very, very broad.
I thought you meant a whole family.
Yeah, well, it may well be.
They lived like some of them. Could some of them grow to be mega herbivore sized?
Yep.
Did they lived like
later ones especially.
they lived like deer? Not deer. They lived like I mean elk. They lived. I mean, bison, hippos, and rhinos. Some of them.
Yeah, similar. And, I mean, under the right circumstances, any animal that's small will grow big if it's not competing with other big animals.
And also, I think the only way they could have been, I don't know if they were large mammals in the age of dinosaurs on the mainland. What do you, what do you figure it's more likely they lived on islands? You know how island evolution works, Foster's rule. Big animals become dwarfs and small animals become giants. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Do you think the same thing could have happened in the Mesozoic with mammals on islands? If there were no non-avian dinosaurs, they could have grown big.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing would have applied.
And even dinosaurs.
What?
And even dinosaurs. Small dinosaurs.
Yeah, I know about Hags. You mean Hagseg Island?
Yeah.
I know. I know. Here, was it more like a microcontinent?
Well, I don't think it's 100% known, but I mean it was a whole system of islands.
They looked like were they about the size of the Caribbean islands today?
I would guess so. Yes.
So they would have been the Caribbean of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, anyway, no, I don't know if we don't get through all the questions today, could you come back another time?
Yeah, it'd probably have to be a little ways away, maybe after Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
After the holiday. Oh, when I don't know if could you talk for a little bit longer?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I celebrate Hanukkah. I'm Jewish. Okay, I mean after the holidays, anyway, do you hear me?
Yep.
Anyway, in the during the Jurassic, what was there dromaeosaurs?
We have dromaeosaur-like animals in Asia, China, specifically by late Jurassic times.
Before
even earlier in the Jurassic, we have teeth of dromaeosaur-sized animals. So, if dromaeosaurs themselves weren't around, their ancestors were certainly in the Jurassic.
And they would have occupied the same niches as big cats and canines.
Yeah.
They would, their ancestors. Was there any in the late Jurassic? Did their lineage go right back to when all the dinosaurs split right at the dawn of the Jurassic after the late Jurassic extinction?
Well, we're still trying to sort out the relationships with some of these animals. It's a lot better than it used to be in terms of being able to understand how they're related to each other. But the fossil record is pretty poor when you get down into mid-Jurassic and earlier.
Yeah, the further you go back in time, the poorer it gets. Did you know? Is that right?
Say again?
The further back in time, the poorer it gets.
Yes, exactly.
That's why there's only 2 sites in the world that are from the early Earth, over 4 billion years ago, for example. Did you know that?
Well, there's some pretty amazing sites still, even early on. So places like Ghost Ranch, with all the coelophysis specimens.
Wasn't Coelophysis? Oh, that brings me to did they live like? Did they occupy the niche that dromaeosaurs would later occupy?
Well, I think to a degree they did, but certainly when you find hundreds or thousands of specimens in one single site, it says they're doing something a little bit differently too.
Was there large theropods in Jurassic, or did they live on the shadows of the Suchians, the ancestors?
There have been isolated bones found of bigger theropods, so definitely there were bigger theropods. Not as big as T-Rex, but still getting pretty big.
You mean like in the Triassic?
Not so much Triassic as early Jurassic.
But I mean, Triassic. It was the Suchians. They were mid and late. Anyway, so the dinosaurs would have been mesopredators back then, mesocarnivores. I mean, what animal didn't Coelophysis? They survived a little bit into the early Jurassic. Mm-hmm. Were they the ancestors of all the other theropods?
Unlikely. It appears that something broke off and separated early on from Coelophysids. And some people think it's animals like Cryolophosaurus or some of the other more primitive looking big theropods or medium-sized theropods.
Those are all basal genus. They're not in a family. They're not currently grouped, right?
No, and they seem to be doing something a little bit different.
So they're not grouped in any taxonomic family. They're basal genuses. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Wasn't Cryolophosaurus and the famous Dilophosaurus relatives? They looked similar.
Well, they look similar, but they're quite different in terms of the skeletons.
Was that just convergent evolution?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of convergent evolution at that time.
Even within dinosaur. What? What? Do you hear me?
I hear you.
Well, you say even with what?
I said even at other times in the history of the world, you get a certain amount of convergence developing because of, who knows, sometimes maybe it's climatic factors or competition with each other or mimicry. There's a lot of reasons when it can happen. So, for example, if you look in the Permian and you look at Dimetrodon and Adaphosaurus are distantly related, but one's a herbivore, one's a carnivore.
Most people don't realize.
Both develop the sails.
Most people, Dimetrodon was not our direct ancestor, right?
No.
But most people don't realize that's not a dinosaur. That animal's more closely related to us and other mammals than to.
Correct.
It's probably the most famous stem mammal that's over there. Anyway, next, what, so in the mid-Jurassic, the ancestors of dromaeosaurs were around and they occupied the same niches as their descendants would.
Say that one again.
So in the mid-Jurassic, the ancestors of the dromaeosaurs were around and is that when they appeared? They occupied the same niches they later would?
I think so, but they weren't as specialized.
Also, what? Sorry to interrupt.
You get forms that are primitive enough that they have dromaeosaur-like characters, but they also have troodontid-like characters, and they also have characters that are not unusual for more primitive theropods.
Were troodon? Oh, go ahead.
So it's essentially you would have to say that the world at that time was developing, and they weren't advanced or sophisticated, but they were still occupying similar niches.
Sorry about that.
As their descendants.
Also, do you have to go yet?
In about 5 minutes.
So let's try. Also, was there we'll continue more of the questions another time, but Also, I believe there's. First of all, we're Troodons carnivores, herbivores, or omnivores, or does it depend? Or we're still a little each.
I'm pretty sure they were carnivores. Not everybody agrees with me, but that's okay.
They definitely were. They definitely were not as in. You know the dinosauroid. They definitely were not that intelligent either.
No, but still, for their time, they were pretty intelligent.
Were they the most intelligent land animal of their time?
I would say yes, because they do have relatively bigger brains.
Well, wasn't T-Rex? I heard T-Rex could have been as smart as a monkey.
I doubt that it was that smart, but say compared to
a crocodile,
Allosaurus, or Tyrannosaurus has a brain that's about 50% bigger. So 1.5 times bigger, which suggests it was certainly smarter.
I heard
that makes sense because it was going after animals that were quite smart as well. I mean, hadrosaurs actually have pretty big brains.
They were the smartest plant-eating dinosaurs, hadrosaurs?
I would say yes. I don't think I know of any other
herbivores.
Groups of herbivores with such big brains as the ornithopods.
Also, I have the Troodontids. What animal? Well, we'll leave that for another time. I believe I have evidence of a. I came up with evidence of a dinosaur civilization. It's more graphic, like Alamosaurus, the sauropod in late Cretaceous North America.
No.
Isn't that the only one in that place and time?
Yeah, I think that's because they were starting to come in from South America.
There were no land bridges, so how could?
Well, there were by the time of Alamosaurus.
Oh, I think.
So, by the end of the Cretaceous, you were getting sauropods going north into North America.
Someone had to have brought them there. Someone had.
Into South America.
I think both the hadrosaurs and the hadrosaurs South America and sauropods in North America. I looked on Earthview and it said there were just island chains. Central America were just islands. But some intelligent dinosaur species had to have introduced them. Also, we find ornithomimids in Australia. There was no land. Bridges. They're way too big to swim or raft. Oh, they couldn't swim or. Do you really think? Do you believe? Also, this. Do you believe what I'm? Do you believe my evidence for dinosaur civilization?
I've never seen any good evidence so far.
And then also, about the
solution. That they were moving that way.
Was there no?
They became extinct first.
What? They could have, if they didn't go extinct, they could have.
If they hadn't become extinct, then I think they would have eventually got to that stage.
Anyway,
but I don't think they had got to that stage.
One more question before we wrap up. Was there any known dinosaurs with human level intelligence? Or even close?
No.
Not even
close.
Primate?
And, I mean, things like Troodon were as smart as the primates during the Cretaceous were, but they became extinct, so they didn't have a chance to go any further.
I thought they were only as smart as emus or opossums, according to YouTube channel Benji Thomas.
Well, the brain was 6 times bigger than, say, a crocodile of the same body weight.
Anyway, this topic for
6 times bigger is getting into the into the stage where they're primitive mammals and birds would be about the same.
Anyway, before we end, right now let's wrap up. Did you tell people about my hangout group? Remember I told you about it?
I didn't because I'm not very good at communicating with people sometimes.
do you
and so
do you have
leave the advertising and things like that up to you? Okay.
Do you use Facebook or YouTube or any social media?
Nope.
Sorry if I'm asking personal questions. Does it bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me at all.
Alright, do you have to go now?
I never have time.
Do you have to go now?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, before let me wrap up. I also have to get going because I have my hangout group come. So it was nice talking to you.
Well, good talking to you, and you take care.
You too.
We'll talk to you after Christmas, maybe.
After the holidays and the New Year, mate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and take and share this podcast. Anyone on YouTube, Discord, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Daily Motion, Reddit, wherever you go, wherever. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe as always. Bye bye.